What if the man who helped shape golf history just shattered Meghan Markle's carefully built reputation with 5 brutal words? Rory McIlroy has reportedly dropped a private bombshell that's now ripping through media headlines, allegedly claiming Meghan Markle was not just a lover from his past, but someone who used him, then vanished. As whispers of a secret affair, emotional betrayal, and cold ambition begin to surface, one question has emerged. Was Meghan's path to royalty lined with relationships she buried along the way? Stay with us, because the deeper we go, the more damning the story becomes, and the fallout might just rock the royal narrative to its core. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. The world of celebrity and royalty has long been a tangled web of glitz, secrets, and carefully managed public narratives. But sometimes, that delicate tapestry is yanked apart by a voice that refuses to stay silent. And in this case, that voice comes from an unlikely source: international golf superstar Rory McIlroy. For years, Rory has been revered for his skill on the green, rarely known to court controversy beyond the sporting world. Until now. This time, the headlines don't revolve around his swing, a major win, or a sponsorship deal. No, this time the headlines are scorched with scandal, and at the center of it all is Meghan Markle. The Duchess of Sussex, already controversial for her turbulent exit from royal duties and divisive public presence, now finds herself the target of a new wave of damning revelations. According to Rory McIlroy, the woman the world once saw as a fairy tale princess was someone entirely different behind closed doors. His alleged claim? That Meghan wasn't just involved with him romantically, but that their relationship had undertones far darker and far more transactional than anyone could have imagined. The bombshell didn't come in a press release. It didn't drop on a talk show. It didn't even surface through paparazzi chatter. It came through what's being called a closed-circle leak, a leak from inside Rory McIlroy's trusted network. Sources allege that Rory privately told friends about a time when he was entangled in a secret, passionate, and ultimately bitter affair with Meghan Markle. He allegedly described her not as a lover, not even as a former flame, but with one word that instantly ignited fury and fascination across the globe: whore. That single word, reported in hushed whispers and now echoed across the internet, set social media ablaze. Was it true? Had Meghan been involved with Rory before, or during, her relationships with other men, including her first husband Trevor Engelson, or worse, before Prince Harry? Did this shocking story have any real traction, or was it just another desperate smear? The world wanted answers. The tabloids launched investigations. The internet exploded with speculation. And buried beneath all the noise was a truth that neither side was prepared to face. Something had been hidden, something big. But let's be clear, this story isn't just about scandal. It's about power, perception, and betrayal. It's about how reputations are sculpted, protected, and sometimes weaponized. Meghan Markle, once hailed as a modern Cinderella, had spent years cultivating a public image of elegance, charity, and progress. Her move from American actress to British royalty was legendary. Her influence stretched from the palace to Netflix, from Buckingham to Spotify. She was in control, or so it seemed. Then came the cracks, rumors of a controlling temperament, awkward family estrangements, legal battles with the press, and tension with the royals. And now this. A man with nothing to gain and everything to lose allegedly breaking rank and calling her out for who he claims she truly was behind closed doors. And it isn't just Rory's words that are raising eyebrows. It's the timing, the tone, and the meticulous details he's reportedly shared with those closest to him. In this video, we're diving deep. We'll examine the timeline of Meghan Markle's early years before royalty, her moves through Hollywood, her previous relationships, and the suspicious gaps that Rory's claims now seem to fill. We'll track their known history, identify unexplained overlaps, and lay out the possible motivations behind Rory's brutal statement. Is this revenge? Is it truth finally rising to the surface? Or is it yet another chapter in a never-ending war of public perception? We'll also examine how this revelation is impacting the public. How did Meghan's loyal supporters react to the allegations? How are critics using this to further their narrative that Meghan is not the victim, but the master manipulator? More importantly, what does this mean for her ongoing projects, her marriage to Prince Harry, and her ever-fragile public image? Let's not forget Prince Harry. His silence in the face of growing controversies has been both telling and troubling. Will this latest blow finally push him to address the truth? Or is he already too deep in a web spun years ago? When the woman you married is suddenly portrayed by a world-famous sports icon as a user, deceiver, and opportunist, how do you respond? Do you defend? Do you deflect? Or do you begin to doubt? The truth is, Rory McIlroy's alleged words didn't just damage Meghan's reputation, they split the public into two warring camps. On one side are those who say Meghan has been unfairly targeted since the beginning, that this is just another man trying to tear down a powerful woman. On the other side are those who say this confirms everything they suspected from day one, that behind the facade lies a calculated operator who used charm as a currency and influence as a ladder. Whichever side you land on, one thing is undeniable: the damage is done. The moment the story broke, Meghan Markle's name was no longer just associated with royalty, controversy, or feminism. It was now linked to deceit, manipulation, and a potential past the palace never saw coming. And what about Rory? He's no fool. He knows the risk. A man of his stature doesn't make such claims lightly. Which leads us to ask the question, why now? Why would Rory McIlroy, a private man with everything to lose, come forward with something so scandalous? Was it out of bitterness? Remorse? Or is there something even bigger he's trying to expose? As we unfold this story piece by piece, we'll hear from insiders, trace verified reports, and pull apart the online reaction to separate facts from speculation. We'll challenge assumptions, revisit Meghan's known history, and confront uncomfortable truths about celebrity, sex, and status. Because this is more than gossip. This is a test of truth in an age of spin. This is the story of a duchess who may have played too many hands, and a man who's finally calling her bluff. So settle in. What you're about to hear will likely change the way you see Meghan Markle forever. And once all the cards are on the table, only one question will remain. Was it all just a game to her? Before his name was etched into the core of this scandal, Rory McIlroy was simply known as one of the greatest golfers of his generation. A man of skill, discipline, and seemingly impenetrable discretion, Rory had always maintained a certain image, focused, private, and uninterested in the circus that often surrounds celebrity culture. He kept his head down, performed under pressure, and rarely made headlines for anything other than winning championships. But this image would soon shatter in the most unexpected way imaginable, dragging him from the golf course into the eye of a media firestorm. Rory was never part of the traditional celebrity ecosystem. Sure, he rubbed shoulders with the elite. He dated tennis star Caroline Wozniacki, made appearances at A-list events, and lived the lavish life of a multi-millionaire sportsman. But he never seemed hungry for the spotlight beyond the fairway. That's why his sudden involvement in a deeply personal and explosive revelation concerning Meghan Markle came as such a shock. To understand how Rory McIlroy became an accidental whistleblower in this saga, we must first rewind. According to insider sources close to the golfer, the relationship between Rory and Meghan predates her courtship with Prince Harry. It supposedly unfolded during a time when Meghan was navigating her post-divorce reality and beginning to position herself for more ambitious moves. She was a rising star on the legal drama Suits, a budding activist with a growing social media presence, and increasingly a fixture at charity events, fashion galas, and elite networking circuits. Precisely the kind of social arenas Rory found himself invited to. It was within one of those elite circles that Rory and Meghan reportedly met, an exclusive party hosted in London, sometime in the mid-2010s, according to those close to the situation. Meghan, ever poised and intentional in her presence, allegedly approached Rory with a warmth and familiarity that quickly evolved into flirtation. By the end of the night, those observing them said the chemistry was undeniable. What followed, as the story goes, was a whirlwind of quiet rendezvous, exclusive dinners, and highly guarded moments between two individuals from very different worlds. What made their alleged affair so combustible was the silence that surrounded it. No paparazzi photos. No cheeky interviews. No public acknowledgement. Everything was kept under wraps until now. The man who built a reputation on not saying much reportedly broke his silence not to a journalist or interviewer, but to those in his inner circle. And when the story leaked from within, the words attributed to Rory were nothing short of nuclear. "She was my whore." Those 5 words, crude and cruel in tone, exploded onto social media and media platforms like wildfire. For a man who had kept his private affairs sealed tight, it was unthinkable. But the source who leaked this bombshell insisted Rory said it in frustration, perhaps not intending for it to go public, but uttered nonetheless with deep emotion behind it. The implications were damning. Not only was Rory alleging that Meghan and he had a relationship, but he was suggesting it was transactional in nature, that she used him, that he felt manipulated, reduced, and discarded. Naturally, this ignited a storm of backlash. Meghan's supporters immediately dismissed the claim as misogynistic slander. Her critics, however, latched onto it as confirmation of everything they had long speculated. Meanwhile, Rory's camp stayed unusually quiet. No public denial, no confirmation, just silence, which only fed the frenzy. In the court of public opinion, silence often screams louder than words. But what would drive a man like Rory, private, respected, and careful, to allow something so provocative to escape into the world? Sources suggest the answer lies in the way their alleged relationship ended. According to those with knowledge of the situation, Rory felt used and discarded. Meghan, according to these accounts, allegedly pulled back from him once she began making inroads with British elite circles, eventually leading to her highly public romance with Prince Harry. One source claims that Rory confided to a close friend that Meghan had been charming and intoxicating, but always 2 steps ahead. She allegedly spoke about ambition, about climbing, about controlling her narrative. At the time, Rory may have interpreted these qualities as alluring. In hindsight, however, he reportedly saw them as indicators of manipulation. It's important to consider that Rory's alleged statements didn't come from a place of public posturing. There was no book tour, no documentary, no paid interview. The story emerged almost accidentally, leaked, it's believed, by a longtime associate who grew tired of watching Rory carry emotional baggage over something no one knew. The associate, speaking anonymously, painted a picture of a man who had been deeply hurt and had never truly healed. It's this emotional core that makes Rory McIlroy such a compelling and unexpected figure in the Meghan Markle saga. He wasn't a media-hungry opportunist looking for a quick payday. He wasn't a jaded ex-lover with a tell-all book. He was a man blindsided by a whirlwind romance, abandoned without explanation, and allegedly left feeling like a pawn in someone else's grander strategy. This alleged version of events repositions Rory not as a villain, but as a casualty, an early casualty of Meghan's transformation from actress to duchess. And that's where the story takes a darker turn. Because if Rory's account holds even a sliver of truth, it suggests a pattern, a calculated series of personal relationships that served a larger ambition. Detractors of Meghan have long accused her of being a social climber, of strategically attaching herself to powerful or influential men in her ascent to global relevance. Rory's claims, if believed, could be interpreted as validation of those accusations. More chillingly, they could suggest that Meghan didn't just orchestrate her public rise, but that she did so on the backs of those who once trusted her privately. Of course, it's impossible to overlook the language used in Rory's alleged quote. The word whore is incendiary, cruel, and degrading, regardless of the context. Even Rory's staunchest defenders admit that it's a term that crosses a line. But they argue that it reflects the rawness of his pain, the depth of his betrayal, and the frustration of watching someone who once occupied a deeply intimate space in his life become a global icon. One who, in his view, never acknowledged or valued the time they shared. Meghan, for her part, has made no public comment. Her silence, much like Rory's, has left a vacuum for speculation. But behind the scenes, sources close to her suggest that she's furious, that she views the leak as a calculated attempt to humiliate her, that she believes Rory, or those around him, are trying to weaponize her past in a moment where her public credibility is already vulnerable. Whether Rory McIlroy truly meant for his words to reach the public is irrelevant now. They're out, and they've torn open a wound in the public perception of Meghan Markle that may never fully close. What began as a private confession, whispered in pain, has morphed into a scandal that's appending narratives and raising questions no publicist can answer. Rory didn't ask to be the whistleblower, but by speaking, even indirectly, he's opened a door that can't be closed. And as we continue peeling back the layers of this story, one thing becomes increasingly clear. The truth, no matter how hidden, has a way of finding the light. To fully grasp the magnitude of Rory McIlroy's alleged claims, and how deeply they shake the public image of Meghan Markle, it is essential to dig into the core of the timeline, a murky, carefully curated series of events that now raises more questions than it answers. How did a top-tier golf champion and a rising Hollywood actress cross paths in the first place? When did this supposed relationship begin? Was it a full-fledged affair, a fleeting but intimate connection, or something else entirely? The more we attempt to answer these questions, the more the seams of Meghan's carefully protected narrative begin to unravel. To begin, we must journey back to a time before Meghan Markle became a household name. Long before the royal wedding, long before the global headlines and Netflix documentaries, Meghan was steadily climbing her way through the ranks of television. Around 2014, she was solidifying her place in the cast of Suits, a modestly popular legal drama filmed in Toronto. While she wasn't yet a major celebrity, she was quickly becoming a familiar face in the entertainment world, with a rising fan base and a lifestyle blog that gave followers glimpses into her fashion choices, wellness routines, and globe-trotting adventures. Rory McIlroy, meanwhile, was already a dominant force in professional golf by this time. At the peak of his game, winning major titles and securing endorsement deals that placed him among the wealthiest sports figures in the world, Rory had developed strong ties to both the European and American elite. His presence at international charity galas, luxury brand events, and celebrity-affiliated fundraisers was not uncommon. And it's within these exclusive circles, particularly a charity-driven networking scene in London and New York, that Meghan and Rory's paths are believed to have crossed. The first rumored encounter dates back to a private post-tournament dinner in 2014 hosted by a prominent fashion executive who was known for bridging the gap between celebrities and sports stars. Meghan, freshly divorced from Trevor Engelson, was gaining invitations to more elite events due to her expanding media presence and her clever networking strategies. She was a known charmer, articulate, poised, and incredibly adept at making lasting impressions. Rory, according to sources who attended the event, took a noticeable interest in her early on in the evening. The two reportedly shared a long conversation, marked by laughter, discreet glances, and what some witnesses described as an immediate spark. From there, rumors of private meetings began to surface. While the two were never seen publicly as a couple, they appeared at several of the same events in close succession: London art exhibits, exclusive scotch tastings, and private charity dinners in both Toronto and Dublin. At the time, these sightings seemed coincidental at best. Meghan was seen as a social climber, yes, but no one suspected there was anything more than professional networking going on. Now, in light of Rory's alleged comments, those events are being re-examined under a new lens. Insiders close to Rory now claim that the relationship was more intense and more personal than anyone knew. Their alleged romance, according to those familiar with it, was deeply secretive and frequently took place in exclusive locations where paparazzi were forbidden and guest lists were tightly controlled. One such location was a discreet countryside manor in Northern Ireland, owned by a mutual acquaintance, where Meghan is believed to have spent at least one long weekend with Rory. The property, known for hosting private political fundraisers and high-profile meetings, was perfectly suited for a secret rendezvous. Another alleged encounter happened during the 2015 U.S. Open in New York. While Rory competed, Meghan was spotted at a fashion party in Manhattan thrown by a mutual brand partner of Rory's sponsor. While she was photographed separately at the event, no images of her with Rory surfaced. However, two anonymous attendees later claimed they left the party together in a black SUV. This moment, long forgotten, suddenly gained renewed attention once Rory's comments went public. The secrecy surrounding their alleged affair was no accident. Meghan, according to insiders, was already planning a strategic reinvention. She wanted to pivot from television actress to international philanthropist, eventually positioning herself as a humanitarian and thought leader. She reportedly confided to close friends about looking for the right door to open, a door into higher social circles, royal connections, and global influence. A public relationship with a golfer, no matter how successful, would not have aligned with that long-term vision, especially not when more promising opportunities were just around the corner. What makes the timeline even more suspicious is the sudden stop in interactions between Meghan and Rory around late 2016. This coincides almost exactly with the period Meghan began seeing Prince Harry. In fact, the timelines almost overlap. Meghan and Harry's relationship reportedly began in the summer of 2016, although they kept it under wraps until months later. Rory's circle claims that their communication with Meghan dropped off completely right before that, abruptly, without explanation. Rory, according to those same sources, felt blindsided. Not only had Meghan cut off contact, but she did so without so much as a text or a phone call. The door had closed in fast. That swift severance is reportedly what prompted Rory's bitterness. To him, it wasn't just about an ending. It was about feeling like a disposable stepping stone. As his friends tell it, Rory had opened his world to her, introduced her to valuable networks, trusted her. And in the end, it felt as though she had taken what she needed and moved on, with no regard for the emotional impact or consequences. Another important aspect to consider is Meghan's sudden shift in tone on her blog, The Tig, around this period. Prior to her relationship with Prince Harry, Meghan often wrote about romance, identity, and her views on navigating the entertainment world. But in mid to late 2016, her posts took on a noticeably curated, diplomatic tone, discussing elevated partnerships, privacy, and purposeful storytelling. Some now see this as an attempt to reframe her public image in preparation for royal life. And if Rory's alleged story holds weight, it could indicate she was consciously distancing herself from past entanglements, including him. As more evidence surfaces, including whispers of private emails and old photographs allegedly buried to prevent exposure, the pressure is mounting. Rory, while still silent publicly, is reportedly standing by his words in private circles. His team has declined comment repeatedly, neither confirming nor denying the leaked statements, which only fuels further speculation. Meghan, likewise, has issued no official denial. Legal threats were rumored to have been sent to publications reporting on the allegations, but no lawsuits have been confirmed. In the absence of clear denials, the timeline grows more plausible. Meghan was single during the period of their alleged romance. Rory was unattached after his public breakup with Wozniacki in 2014. Both were present at the same events. Both had access to the kinds of circles where discretion is the currency of connection. And both have reasons, personal and professional, for wanting to keep that relationship a secret, at least until now. The timeline also raises another critical question. Did anyone in the royal family know about Rory before Meghan married into the monarchy? According to one royal insider, there was always suspicion that Meghan's past wasn't fully disclosed, that there were pieces of her romantic history that didn't make it into the vetting process. If Rory's claims were known earlier, it could have radically altered the royal engagement, or at the very least, intensified the palace's already cautious approach to Meghan. For now, what we're left with is a timeline filled with suspicious overlaps, alleged secret meetings, and a narrative that continues to evolve. Meghan's past is being peeled back in ways she likely never anticipated. And Rory, whether he wanted to or not, has become the face of this unexpected reckoning. The road from secret lover to public whistleblower is paved with betrayal, pain, and, perhaps, a thirst for justice. And as we trace this affair from flirtatious beginnings to explosive endings, one truth becomes clearer. Nothing about Meghan Markle's rise to royalty was accidental. Every connection, every relationship, every step was chosen. And Rory McIlroy now stands as the first man brave, or bitter, enough to pull back the curtain. In the world of public figures, words can be weapons, blunt, devastating, irreversible. And when Rory McIlroy allegedly uttered the now infamous phrase, "She was my whore," the impact was immediate and explosive. It sent shockwaves across continents, crashing into tabloid front pages, trending hashtags, and news cycles already saturated with Meghan Markle controversy. 5 words, just 5, but their weight was enough to fracture the pristine facade that Meghan had built over years of calculated public relations, royal poise, and high-profile interviews. They weren't part of a media stunt. They weren't shared in a polished memoir. They were leaked, reportedly from a deeply private conversation, not meant for cameras or microphones. And maybe that's why they hit so hard. First, let's consider the origin of the phrase, how it surfaced, and why it matters. The quote didn't come from an official press conference or even a casual media comment. Instead, it emerged through a carefully orchestrated leak from Rory's inner circle. According to individuals close to the situation, the words were allegedly spoken by Rory during an emotionally charged conversation with friends at a private gathering sometime last year. The setting was informal, a luxurious but secluded estate in Ireland, where Rory reportedly opened up about past relationships. When Meghan Markle's name came up, his mood reportedly shifted. One source described it as a moment of bitter clarity, while another characterized it as a release of pain that had built up for years. The person who leaked the quote claimed to have been part of that inner circle, and though the public doesn't know the exact recording or transcript, multiple outlets cited the same 5 words, corroborating each other in different ways. The statement was raw, crude, unmistakably male in its aggression. And yet, for some, it sounded too precise to be fabricated. It struck a nerve not just because of the derogatory term used, but because it shattered an illusion. If Rory, known for being soft-spoken and even-tempered, could express such venom, then perhaps something deeper had occurred between him and Meghan, something the public never saw. But what exactly did he mean? Was the comment a reflection of hurt? A claim of betrayal? A comment on the nature of their alleged relationship? Some close to Rory suggested that it wasn't meant to reduce Meghan to that label in a literal sense, but to describe how he felt used, how he perceived her intentions during their secret affair. Still, the language carried implications far beyond personal bitterness. It suggested ownership, objectification, a fundamental lack of respect. And once those 5 words became public, there was no walking them back. Public reaction was immediate and polarized. Meghan's supporters called the comment misogynistic, abusive, and defamatory. Social justice advocates argued that it perpetuated the harmful trope of men trying to control women by shaming their pasts. They said that even if Rory had once shared a romantic connection with Meghan, his language revealed more about him than her specifically, his inability to handle rejection or process emotional loss in a healthy way. But on the other side of the spectrum, a different chorus emerged, one that claimed the language, while harsh, was an expression of a deeper truth. These critics of Meghan argued that Rory's words reflected what many had suspected for years, that Meghan was not the innocent actress swept off her feet by a prince, but a woman who deliberately navigated her relationships with purpose, ambition, and control. That to Rory, she wasn't a victim, but a strategist who used affection to gain access, visibility, and power. And when she was done, she moved on. Without explanation, without closure. This divide in public perception mirrors a broader cultural war over how women are portrayed in media, especially those who wield charm and ambition in male-dominated arenas. Meghan Markle has, for years, stood at the crossroads of that debate, celebrated by some for breaking royal norms and vilified by others for what they see as manipulative self-promotion. Rory's alleged statement poured gasoline on that already raging fire, positioning Meghan once again in the middle of a polarizing debate. Feminist icon or calculated opportunist. In the weeks following the leak, there was speculation that Meghan might take legal action. While no lawsuit has been confirmed, several news agencies reported that her team issued cease and desist warnings to platforms and blogs that published the quote directly. In official channels, Meghan remained silent. No interview. No denial. Just the usual curated social media posts and staged public appearances that have come to define her communication style. This silence didn't help her. In fact, for many, it raised further suspicion. If the quote was fabricated, why not publicly deny it? Why not challenge Rory or the media that repeated it? Some insiders suggested that Meghan didn't want to give the statement more oxygen than it already had, that acknowledging it would only prolong the narrative and distract from her current projects. But others argued that silence in the face of a character assassination is often read as an admission, if not of guilt, then of powerlessness. Meanwhile, Rory himself has yet to speak publicly about the matter. His team declined to comment. His social media accounts remained focused on golf, charity work, and endorsements. But those close to him say he hasn't retracted the quote in private conversations. In fact, one longtime associate reportedly said, he knows what he said. He stands by it. He's just not going to entertain a media circus about it. That stoicism, while admirable to some, comes off as callous to others, especially given the sexist undertones of his alleged words. There's also the matter of Rory's reputation. In the world of professional sports, public image is everything. Sponsors, fans, and governing bodies watch closely. While he hasn't lost any major endorsements since the quote surfaced, some companies reportedly expressed concern behind closed doors. And while Rory is known for his integrity and calm demeanor, this scandal has chipped away at the image he spent years building. Some believe that by choosing not to address the comment, he has taken a calculated risk, betting that public interest will shift elsewhere before it causes real damage. But perhaps the most significant fallout from the statement lies in what it reveals about the psychology of betrayal. Rory's words, while jarring, appear to stem from a place of deep emotional injury. If we believe the accounts of his inner circle, Rory wasn't just angry, he was wounded. He believed he had a genuine connection with Meghan. He supported her, opened his private world to her, and was left feeling like a disposable asset. That kind of emotional damage doesn't fade quietly. It lingers. It festers. And in Rory's case, it may have eventually broken loose in a single, volatile sentence that would define an entire controversy. In the end, Rory's statement is more than just a headline. It's a lens into the private lives of two people whose paths crossed during a pivotal moment in both of their journeys. For Meghan, it was the transition from actress to global figure. For Rory, it was the awakening to a reality he didn't expect, that someone he trusted may have never intended to stay. Whether or not Meghan used Rory as a stepping stone, or whether Rory simply misread the relationship, is a matter of interpretation. But what remains undeniable is the damage that one unguarded statement can cause, not just to reputations, but to entire narratives built on control, perception, and image. What happens next remains unclear. Will Rory ever clarify or apologize? Will Meghan retaliate or reveal her version of events? Or will this controversy become yet another unresolved chapter in the ongoing saga of Meghan Markle's tumultuous public life? One thing is certain, those 5 words have changed everything. They've reignited old suspicions, fueled new investigations, and forced both Rory and Meghan into a war neither of them can completely control. And as the world watches, only time will tell if this latest revelation is a final blow, or merely the beginning of something far more revealing. To truly understand the gravity of Rory McIlroy's alleged statement and the scandal it ignited, we must move beyond the explosive words themselves and into the world that surrounds him. It's one thing for a public figure to voice a controversial sentiment in a moment of emotional heat. It's another entirely when that sentiment is echoed, dissected, and supported by those who know him best. Rory's inner circle, those close friends, associates, trainers, and confidants who've stood beside him in moments of triumph and hardship, have slowly emerged as the keepers of context. And what they have to say only deepens the intrigue. These aren't the tabloid chasers or anonymous trolls that fuel internet rumors. The individuals now speaking up have names, histories, and, most importantly, long-standing credibility in Rory's life. Some have traveled with him from tournament to tournament for over a decade. Others have been guests at his family gatherings, shared meals with him, spent long evenings speaking about relationships, career pressures, and personal dreams. In short, they are the people Rory has let see the man behind the media-trained athlete. One of the first to break the silence was a retired caddy who once worked with Rory during a critical period of his career. Although no longer under contract, he maintains a close friendship with Rory and still attends many of his tournaments. In a private message that was later leaked and verified by multiple sources, the caddy wrote, "That man was in a mess for weeks when she ghosted him. I'd never seen him drink that much or lock himself away like that. He didn't even do that after Wozniacki. That should tell you something." According to this account, Meghan's sudden withdrawal from Rory's life had a more profound effect than many realized at the time. It was not simply a fling or a short-lived distraction. It was something that appeared to shake him emotionally. Another longtime associate, a family friend known to accompany Rory at key social events, spoke on condition of anonymity, but offered a more detailed account of the nature of Rory's relationship with Meghan. He fell for her. Let's just be clear about that. Rory doesn't fall easily, not since Caroline. But Meghan had this way of looking at him like he was the only man in the room. You could see it, how focused she was on him. It wasn't just flirting, it was something more deliberate. Calculated, maybe. This statement introduces a chilling element to the growing narrative, that Rory was not only emotionally involved, but may have been emotionally manipulated. According to those closest to him, Rory was known to be vulnerable during that particular phase of his life. His breakup with Wozniacki had been public and brutal. The media scrutiny had left him wary of romantic entanglements. Yet Meghan, described by many as charming, intelligent, and socially adaptable, allegedly navigated that emotional terrain with precision. She knew how to make a man feel like the center of her world, even if only temporarily. Multiple sources claim that Rory made significant efforts to accommodate Meghan's presence in his life. He reportedly rearranged travel schedules, declined certain promotional events, and even used private resources to ensure Meghan could attend discreet gatherings with him. One of his personal assistants, now retired from his team, recounted, "There were times when Meghan needed to be flown somewhere on short notice, and Rory didn't hesitate. He'd tell us to make it happen, no questions asked. You don't do that for just anyone." There's also the matter of Rory's close-knit friend group. many of whom reside in Ireland and maintain a fiercely protective attitude toward him. One close friend who asked not to be named due to ongoing business affiliations stated plainly he never stopped thinking about her. Even after she disappeared from his life, even after she went public with Harry. That burned him, because he never got a goodbye, just silence. This lack of closure is a recurring theme in conversations with Rory's circle. According to them, what stung the most wasn't that Meghan left, it was how she left. No confrontation, no explanation, just a sudden stop, followed by international headlines showcasing Meghan as a royal-to-be. That kind of erasure is personal, deep. It's the kind of experience that doesn't just wound, it alters a man's view on trust. Perhaps the most startling account comes from a former communications strategist who once advised Rory on media relations. According to him, Rory confided in private meetings about feeling played. The strategist claims Rory described Meghan as dangerous in how calculated she was. That she knew what she wanted and had no time for anyone who didn't fit the plan. The same source recalls Rory saying, "I wasn't her destination. I was just a step." The strategist went on to suggest that Rory had drafted several private letters to Meghan after their separation, letters that were never sent. In one, according to his memory, Rory had written a line that would later eerily echo in the leaked statement. "I gave you what you asked for. You gave me silence." These unsent letters, if they exist, have not been made public, but their existence adds a layer of psychological realism to Rory's alleged statement. It implies that his anger wasn't spontaneous, but rather simmering beneath the surface for years. Interestingly, not all of Rory's inner circle agrees with the public release of the statement. One old friend, who still plays golf with Rory regularly, suggested that the words were never meant to go public and were likely taken out of emotional context. "He didn't say it for the world to hear," the friend explained. "He was venting to people he trusted." Was the wording too harsh? Yes, but that's what raw pain sounds like. Another friend added that Rory has always had difficulty articulating his emotions, particularly when it comes to personal betrayals. He keeps things in. Then, when he finally lets it out, it can sound harsher than he means. That's Rory. But make no mistake, he was broken by what happened. Still, despite these attempts to soften the narrative, the underlying message remains consistent among Rory's confidants. He believed his relationship with Meghan Markle was real, that it meant something, that he was deeply affected by how it ended, and that, in his own words or not, he felt used. There are also stories about moments Rory allegedly tried to reinitiate contact with Meghan, short messages that received no response. Social media DMs that went unread. One of Rory's childhood friends claims he once showed him a message to Meghan that read simply, "Hope you're happy. I wish things were different." There was never a reply. Perhaps the most damning support of Rory's claim comes not from what was said, but what wasn't. In the months since the statement surfaced, Meghan has remained strategically silent. Her inner circle, typically quick to defend her against unflattering press, has also avoided direct engagement with this particular scandal. Publicly, there's been no lawsuit, no counterstatement, no social media pushback. This absence of denial has been interpreted by some as a legal strategy to wait out the news cycle. But for others, it is a quiet confirmation that something existed between them, something neither party wants exposed in full. In the end, Rory's inner circle paints a picture not of a malicious man bent on revenge, but of a wounded individual whose private heartbreak became a public spectacle. They say his words were not calculated for media impact, but born out of frustration, regret, and betrayal. Whether those words were right or wrong is a matter of opinion. But what cannot be ignored is the consistency in the voices that surround him, the story they all tell, the emotion they all echo. Rory McIlroy didn't plan to become the voice that pierced Meghan Markle's polished image. But through the support and testimonies of those closest to him, we begin to see the man behind the quote, the pain that built in silence, the questions that went unanswered, and the final sentence that, once leaked, changed everything. To truly appreciate the seismic impact of Rory McIlroy's alleged statement and the subsequent ripple it caused, one must take a deeper look at the woman at the center of it all, Meghan Markle. Not the tabloid version, not the curated Instagram persona, but the architect behind one of the most successful and scrutinized personal brand transformations of the last decade. Because what Rory's words threatened wasn't just Meghan's past, it was the image she spent years meticulously constructing and defending. Before Meghan was royalty, Before she was the face of global causes or the voice behind multi-million-dollar deals with Spotify, Netflix, and Penguin Random House, she was Rachel Zane, an ambitious paralegal on the USA Network legal drama Suits. While the show itself hovered in that ambiguous space between popular and cult favorite, it offered Meghan an invaluable platform, not just visibility, but a character that mirrored what she would soon become, a woman driven by intelligence, confidence, and a quiet strength. Yet even then, those close to the industry noted that Meghan stood out for more than just a role. Off-screen, she cultivated a lifestyle that hinted at aspirations far greater than acting. Her now-defunct blog, The Tig, became a haven for aspirational living, discussing fashion, wellness, travel, and interviews with powerful women. It was soft power at work. With each post, Meghan wasn't just showcasing her interests. She was presenting a version of herself that would be ready to cross into elite circles without raising suspicion. That blog, along with carefully chosen friendships and media appearances, helped turn Meghan from actress to activist. She started appearing at summits, speaking about women's empowerment, and aligning herself with international organizations. Her public tone grew more diplomatic, her style more polished, and her commentary more measured. For those paying close attention, it was clear Meghan was reshaping her narrative from the ground up. And then came Prince Harry. The announcement of their relationship in 2016 seemed to confirm everything Meghan had been building toward. Suddenly, the young actress with an eye for global causes and a flair for media strategy was now standing at the edge of the British monarchy. The public watched in awe and then in disbelief as this modern American woman began a royal courtship that would redefine centuries of tradition. From the start, Meghan played her role with poise. During public engagements with Prince Harry, she appeared gracious, compassionate, and confident. Her wedding dress, her speeches, and her public outreach all reinforced a central image: Meghan as the modern Duchess, the woman who would bring new energy and values to an aging institution. But that image came with pressure, and it came with critics. As the tabloids dissected everything from her body language to her family background, Meghan's team kicked into overdrive. Reputation management firms were engaged. Narratives were shaped. Leaks were countered. Public statements were issued with surgical precision. Everything was part of a larger strategy: control the story, shape the perception, preserve the brand. By the time she and Prince Harry exited their royal duties in 2020, a move dubbed Megxit by the press, Meghan had shifted from Duchess to disruptor. Her story was no longer just about tradition and duty. It was about independence, freedom, and fighting back against a system that she claimed treated her unfairly. The Oprah Winfrey interview in 2021 marked a turning point. Meghan presented herself as a survivor of racism, silencing, and institutional cruelty. To her supporters, it was a raw, brave act of truth-telling. To her detractors, it was a manipulative PR maneuver filled with half-truths and inconsistencies. What no one could deny, however, was her mastery of narrative. Meghan Markle knew how to present herself, how to speak in sound bites, how to evoke sympathy, evoke outrage, and elevate her status. Whether you viewed her as a victim or a strategist, it was clear Meghan didn't leave much to chance. And that's why Rory McIlroy's alleged statement hit like a wrecking ball. Because it wasn't just about a past relationship. It wasn't just about an affair. It was a direct assault on the image Meghan had spent years building. To be described in such demeaning terms, my whore, was not just vulgar, it was incompatible with the persona she had cultivated. It struck at the heart of her transformation. It called into question whether the woman the public had come to know was authentic or a fiction. The problem for Meghan wasn't just the vulgarity of the statement. It was its implication. That behind all the curated charity work and public service, behind the diplomatic gowns and poetic speeches, there existed a woman capable of exploiting intimacy for advancement. That the path she took to royalty was not just paved with hard work and passion, but with strategic relationships and emotional manipulation. And it's not the first time such a narrative has been whispered. Even before the Rory scandal broke, there were murmurs. Former friends speaking anonymously about how they felt discarded once Meghan climbed higher. Stories of staff members leaving Kensington Palace under suspicious circumstances, of feuds with the likes of Princess Kate, and constant suggestions that Meghan viewed life as a chessboard with herself as the queen. Critics said she controlled access to Harry, played the media with precision, and rebranded herself with each new phase of her life. Meghan, to her credit, has always denied these accusations through either silence or strong counter-narratives. She has painted herself as a woman misunderstood, mischaracterized, and mistreated. But Rory's words shattered the shield of silence. They weren't from the tabloids. They weren't from anonymous palisades. They were allegedly from someone who claimed to have shared an intimate connection with her. Someone who had nothing to gain and everything to lose by speaking out. This forced the public to re-examine the narrative. If Rory's words were true, or even if they reflected a genuine perception, what did that mean for Meghan's carefully crafted public image? Could both stories coexist? Could Meghan be both a woman navigating a cruel system and someone who used relationships as currency? Supporters argue that Meghan's past, including any relationship with Rory, is irrelevant. They say it's a smear campaign designed to derail a woman who dared to step outside the lines. They point to the long history of powerful women being vilified for ambition. But critics counter that Meghan's brand is built entirely on authenticity, compassion, and moral clarity. If that image cracks, even slightly, it calls everything else into question. Perhaps the most telling element of Meghan's media strategy post-Rory scandal is what hasn't been said. No official denial. No public clarification. No Oprah-style sit-down to refute the claims. Her team has chosen silence, perhaps hoping the story will fade. But silence, in the world of public image, can sometimes speak louder than words. Meanwhile, Meghan has continued to attend public events, give keynote speeches, and produce content through her and Harry's Archewell Foundation. But even in those moments, the shadow of Rory's words lingers. Every red carpet appearance is scrutinized a little more. Every speech dissected for hidden meaning. The brand is no longer invulnerable. In the end, what Rory's statement did was something no tabloid, no royal feud, and no podcast critique could do. It brought Meghan's private world into direct conflict with her public one. It pulled the curtain back. And now the public is left to decide. Is Meghan Markle the empowered, mistreated figure she presents herself to be, or is she a master of illusion, navigating fame with ruthless calculation? Whichever answer one believes, the damage is done. And for a woman who has built her life on image, perception, and control, that may be the deepest wound of all. In the modern age of instant headlines, viral tweets, and reputation management firms, truth is often the first casualty of scandal. And when it comes to Meghan Markle and Rory McIlroy, the battle for public perception quickly escalated into a full-fledged media war. The moment Rory's alleged statement reached the ears of the public, 5 vulgar words that shattered the composed image of a duchess, the media machine roared to life. And what followed wasn't merely coverage. It was combat. Within hours of the leak, news outlets across the globe were scrambling for verification. Some treated the quote as credible and inflammatory, while others dismissed it as a baseless rumor manufactured by anti-Meghan forces. But while the mainstream press was cautious, digital tabloids, gossip bloggers, and YouTube commentators wasted no time. The story surged across platforms, shared, retweeted, embedded into videos, dissected in reaction podcasts. It didn't matter if people believed Rory or Meghan. What mattered was that people were paying attention. What made the media frenzy so difficult to control was the lack of clear, direct commentary from either party. Rory remained silent, fueling speculation. Meghan's camp released no public denial. That vacuum created a feeding ground for speculation, opinion, and anonymous leaks. Every day brought a new twist. A supposed text from Rory. A mysterious old email involving Meghan. A new insider claiming they had once seen the two of them at a private party in New York. With so many angles and no central narrative, the public split into camps. Pro-Meghan media outlets, including several US-based digital platforms with progressive leanings, framed the scandal as a gendered attack, a powerful man attempting to demean a woman for exercising autonomy over her romantic past. They cited Rory's language as toxic and misogynistic. They questioned the credibility of the sources and suggested that the entire leak may have been an orchestrated campaign by royal loyalists or disgruntled insiders. At the same time, more conservative and royalist-aligned outlets ran with the story, portraying it as yet another crack in Meghan's curated facade. To them, Rory's quote wasn't a slur, it was a revelation. They spun narratives that positioned Meghan as a master manipulator, a woman who climbed the social ladder by any means necessary, and Rory as the brave soul finally exposing what so many had suspected. Caught between these narratives were millions of readers, watchers, and listeners. People who had once admired Meghan, now unsure of what to believe. Others who had long distrusted her, emboldened by the scandal. And a few who saw the entire episode as a tragic tale of two broken people being devoured by a system that thrives on spectacle. Behind the scenes, both camps sprang into action. Meghan's media team, seasoned veterans in image control, were said to be monitoring every platform where the quote was gaining traction. A flurry of takedown requests were reportedly sent to blogs that republished the quote without evidence or attribution. At least 3 influencers claimed to receive cease and desist letters after uploading commentary videos that repeated the full allegation without disclaimers. Some quietly removed their content. Others doubled down, inviting legal confrontation and citing free speech protections. Meanwhile, Rory's team remained elusive. Calls to his publicist went unanswered. Requests for comment were ignored. There were rumors that he had been advised by legal counsel to stay quiet. Some speculated that Rory regretted the leak. Others claimed he was satisfied that the truth had finally surfaced, even if indirectly. Still, the silence from his camp allowed others to fill in the blanks. And the media war raged on. The scandal also exposed a deeper and more troubling pattern: the weaponization of leaks. Over the next few weeks, several new pieces of information appeared online, some from supposed insiders, others from unverifiable sources. One blog published an alleged text message between Rory and a mutual friend, where he lamented Meghan's ability to vanish like smoke after you've given her your soul. Another social media account posted a photograph of Meghan attending a private event at a golf tournament that Rory had competed in, one that had previously gone unnoticed by the public. Some of these leaks were likely true. Others were almost certainly fabricated. But in a world addicted to drama, accuracy was secondary to virality. And Meghan's team knew it. They reportedly began compiling dossiers on repeat offenders, accounts, blogs, and platforms that had contributed most aggressively to spreading the quote and related allegations. Some of these platforms reported drops in traffic, mysterious account suspensions, or unexplained content takedowns in the days that followed. That, in turn, sparked accusations of censorship. Critics accused Meghan's team of trying to erase the internet's memory, of using their influence with big tech firms to silence dissent. Meghan's defenders argued that she had every right to protect herself from defamation. The media war had now grown into a full-scale information battle, freedom of speech versus the right to reputation. And this wasn't just happening online. Television programs began dedicating full segments to the fallout. Pundits debated the ethics of repeating an unverified quote. Psychologists were invited onto panels to discuss the impact of betrayal. Feminists clashed with cultural critics on whether Rory's alleged words should be condemned or contextualized. Even comedians got involved, with late-night hosts making offhand jokes that only deepened the perception that the scandal was spiraling out of control. As for the palace, officially there was no comment, but insiders suggested there was quiet satisfaction behind the scenes. The royal family had been painted in a negative light repeatedly by Meghan and Harry's media efforts. This scandal shifted the focus. At least for a time, it took the spotlight off Charles, William, and the internal royal conflicts. It gave the public a new drama to devour, and it didn't originate inside Buckingham Palace. As the media firestorm intensified, the question on everyone's lips remained the same: why no public statement from Meghan? And why hadn't Rory clarified or retracted the comment? Some speculated that both were waiting for the other to move first. Meghan calculating whether a denial would legitimize the allegation. Rory weighing whether an apology would be seen as weakness or an admission. Neither seemed willing to blink. Eventually, a short, vague statement was released via a third-party PR firm affiliated with Meghan's legal team. It read, "We will not dignify unfounded, misogynistic commentary with a response. The Duchess remains committed to her work and will not be distracted by malicious distortions of her past." While the statement avoided direct reference to Rory, its intent was clear. And yet, it did little to stem the tide. If anything, the ambiguity gave critics more ammunition. As the weeks passed, the scandal morphed into something more abstract: a debate about truth, gender politics, and the price of public life. Meghan's silence became part of her image: controlled, deliberate, impenetrable. Rory's silence became part of his myth: wounded, angry, but resolute. And the media continued to feed the beast, recycling every angle, every whisper, every possible interpretation. In many ways, The media war was the most revealing part of the entire saga. Not because it told us what happened between Meghan and Rory, but because it showed how vulnerable even the most powerful narratives are to disruption. Meghan had built her brand with precision. One leak, one phrase, and the foundation shook. Whether the cracks will deepen or heal remains to be seen. But one thing is certain. The battle for control over her image has entered a new phase. And in this war, silence speaks as loudly as scandal. When the allegations from Rory McIlroy's inner circle burst into public view, accusing Meghan Markle of not only having a secret affair with him, but of allegedly using him in a calculated, transactional manner, there was a deafening silence from Buckingham Palace. Not a single royal aide made a public comment. No statement was issued. No senior royal took to the airwaves to express shock, concern, or support. But within the halls of royal residences, behind heavily guarded doors and off-the-record conversations, there was no doubt. This scandal had everyone talking, not with panic, not with outrage, but, some sources claim, with a quiet and knowing sense of satisfaction. To understand why, we need to revisit the deeply complex and often tense relationship between Meghan Markle and the House of Windsor. From the moment Meghan stepped into the royal spotlight, the traditional institution began to quake. She brought with her not only American charm, Hollywood polish, and a global fan base, but also an attitude toward press freedom, privacy, and personal independence that fundamentally clashed with the rigid customs of British royal life. Her marriage to Prince Harry in 2018 was, on the surface, a celebration of progress and inclusion. A biracial American divorcee becoming Duchess of Sussex was a powerful symbol in a centuries-old monarchy. But behind the scenes, friction began almost immediately. Meghan reportedly clashed with aides, rewrote protocols, and, according to insiders, pushed for changes in operations that rubbed senior members the wrong way. Her break with royal traditions, whether fashion choices, interactions with staff, or her handling of the media, sparked tensions that only escalated with time. By 2020, when Harry and Meghan officially announced they were stepping back as senior royals, the palace was caught off guard. That decision, made without full consultation, stunned royal courtiers and left a visible bruise on the monarchy's carefully orchestrated public image. What followed was a media and institutional war, with Meghan and Harry presenting their side through interviews, a bombshell Oprah appearance, and Netflix docuseries, all filled with allegations of racism, emotional distress, neglect, and palace coldness. Buckingham Palace, adhering to its time-tested never complain, never explain mantra, responded minimally. But sources confirmed the family was deeply rattled. This context is critical to understanding the muted but significant reaction to the Rory McIlroy scandal. According to insiders who spoke off record, senior figures within the royal family were not surprised by the news. In fact, one longtime royal staffer reportedly stated they always knew there were missing chapters in Meghan's story. There was talk, years earlier, that Meghan had socialized with high-profile men during her years as an actress. But the palace never pursued those leads publicly. Doing so would have backfired, appearing petty or invasive. However, once Rory's alleged claims became public, a new dynamic emerged. One source from within the palace's communications team revealed this wasn't a scandal caused by the monarchy. This was external. That changed everything. It gave the palace the luxury of watching without participating. In other words, the royal family could remain silent while their fiercest critic took a reputational hit from someone entirely outside the institution. Prince William, according to one royal observer, was reportedly visibly calm in the days after the story broke. While no direct quotes emerged, the dynamic between William and Harry, already strained, grew icier. Some interpreted the palace's silence as a strategic move, allowing Meghan to weather the storm on her own without the protective arm of the monarchy. After all, she had chosen independence. Now, she would have to navigate public scrutiny without the benefit of royal crisis management. Another element fueling speculation was Princess Anne's demeanor during public appearances in the weeks that followed. Known for her no-nonsense attitude and loyalty to tradition, Anne was described by one courtier as stern, but privately amused, when the scandal began dominating headlines. Let's just say, the source added, there was a sense that the chickens were coming home to roost. Yet the most significant reaction likely came from Queen Camilla and King Charles. According to close observers of the royal calendar, several internal meetings were cancelled around the time the Rory story began trending globally. Charles reportedly held private discussions with his legal team, not necessarily to act, but to assess potential legal vulnerabilities related to past agreements involving Meghan and Harry. After all, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex had signed contracts and received funding tied to their royal status. If Meghan's reputation took a severe enough blow, would that impact how those agreements were viewed? Was there an opportunity to renegotiate terms? Cut off lingering entitlements? One royal financial advisor said the scandal could have long-term implications for how the Sussexes are referenced in royal documents. If the public's trust in Meghan erodes significantly, he noted, there could be calls to formally sever any symbolic ties. Not just security or funding, but titles, ceremonial references, the way her name appears in historical archives. But not everyone in the royal household celebrated the scandal. Some senior officials reportedly expressed concern over the moral implications of remaining silent. An anonymous courtier described a sense of discomfort. It's easy to take pleasure when your adversary falters, but we must also remember that this involves real pain, real people. Harry, after all, is still the king's son. That concern, however, was reportedly dwarfed by strategic pragmatism. For the palace, the scandal served multiple purposes. It shifted public focus away from internal royal divisions and controversies. It weakened the Sussexes' moral high ground. It justified, at least in the minds of some, the icy relationship that had developed between Meghan and key royal players. Most importantly, it confirms